Jai Gurudev Brahmaraji.
Yeah.
Shamyadam. Yes, your summary of first Shataka or chapter 7. Kindly let me know.
I think we finished summary of 6 chapters, no?
Okay.
We did the summary. How many pages is this? I think we did this before we started Atma Bodh. But in order to bring to context, I think if it's a few pages, no? Yeah, you may want to do the summary once, Bela. We'll get back to the context.
Okay, so I will read the summary. With the completion of the 6th chapter, the first Shatka, a group of 6 chapters of the Gita is over. Although the same topic, Tattvam Asi, runs through all 18 chapters, there is a marked difference between each of the three groups, as you will see when we take up the 7th chapter. Tat Tvam Asi is an equation that can be looked at in terms of these three groups of 6 chapters, each group called a Shatka in Sanskrit. In the first Shatka, the meaning of the word Tvam is analyzed. In the second Shatka, the meaning of the word Tat is analyzed. And in the third Shatka, the meaning of the word Asi, which equates Tvam and Tat, is analyzed. Thus, I'm really sorry, the page suddenly disappears. In the first Shatka, the meaning of the word Tvam is analyzed. In the second Shatka, the meaning of the word Tat is analyzed. And in the third Shatka, the meaning of the word Asi, which equates Tvam and Tat, is analyzed. Thus, the three groups of 6 chapters predominantly with Tvam Pada Artha, Tat Pada Artha, and Asi Pada Artha, respectively. The 6 chapters that we have seen so far talk about Tvam, you as a person with dharma adharma conflict. In the first chapter, Arjuna was presented in a tight situation wherein his affections conflicted with the call of duty. One's duty is one thing and one's affections are quite another. And Arjuna found himself more moved by the love and affection he had for the elders of his family than by his duty. As long as your duty does not come into conflict with your affection, it is easy to perform your duties. And if your call of duty is so pronounced that your affection does not overpower it, you can still heed to the call and do your duty, meaning that you make your affection subserve the duty. However, there are also occasions where the affection gets the better of the duties, resulting in a conflict. This happens because you cannot dismiss duty just like that. It is something that you know is to be done, nor can you dismiss your affections just like that. The very fact that you sometimes go by your feelings proves that they are equally powerful and are capable of completely overpowering you occasionally, which is what happened to Arjuna. Arjuna's predicament. Arjuna had a legitimate argument for wanting to get out of this particular situation because it was one in which a lot of blood would be shed. Since killing was involved, Arjuna's problem definitely had a valid basis. His entire predicament, leading to an action on his part, was presented in the first chapter by Arjuna himself. And after he had finished, he sat back in the chariot, prepared to give up the battle. This was the action. He had come to the battlefield armed and ready to fight. He had even asked Krishna to take him to a spot where he could see those against whom he would be fighting. Until then, there was no problem. But when he saw the people involved, he became different. Only then did the problem arise. Only when one faces a situation can one understand the implications. And Arjuna saw the implications of this particular situation immediately. He saw that he had to fight against Drona and Bhishma, and he tried to tell Krishna that this was not proper. This then was Arjuna's predicament, the predicament of you, Tvam, the individual, the jiva, who is subject to emotions, to right and wrong, dharma and adharma, and also to sorrow, shoka. Arjuna represented anyone who gets into a conflict and ends up in a state of sadness. Because Arjuna wanted to be free of this sadness, he talked to Krishna. And this talking helped him not to get out of sorrow, but to discover in the process of talking a problem that is more chronic to the human condition than the acute problem that was right there in front of him. In front of Arjuna was the problem of having to fight this particular battle, whereas the more chronic problem was the human problem. I am subject to sorrow, which is also a you, tvam problem. This is discerning the problem, discovering in oneself a desire for freedom from the original problem of sorrow. Krishna had the knowledge that could make one free. Arjuna knew this fact, but he had not drawn upon it earlier because he had no interest in it before. The first few years of Arjuna's life had been spent gathering valor, marrying, and so on. Later, of course, he got involved in all the problems that resulted in his going to the forest, where he spent 13 years with no time for anything but survival and thinking about how to settle accounts with Duryodhana. With every thorn he removed from his foot while walking in the forest, Arjuna was reminded of the hurt rendered by Duryodhana, whose scheming ways were responsible for his having to suffer in the forest in the first place. Therefore, Duryodhana was a much bigger thorn for Arjuna than any of the thorns he had to remove from his feet. Arjuna had been born with a golden spoon in his mouth, but still he had to suffer this period of exile. The presence of his wife Draupadi in the forest was also a reminder of the account to be settled with Duryodhana, especially since she had decided not to tie her hair until the insult she had suffered had been avenged. Thus, her flowing hair would definitely have been the constant reminder to Arjuna about the need to get even with Duryodhana. Naturally, then Arjuna had no time, no chance to think about Atma, Brahman, or anything. Arjuna's lot is everyone's lot. What is to be understood here is that Arjuna's lot is the lot of any human being whose mind is possessed, seized by certain situations. This is all the meaning of Jiva, individual. The meaning of the word you, Tvam Pada Artha, that I am hurt is you, that I am subject to sorrow is you, that I am called upon to do certain duties, having been born as a person into certain situations is also you, and that I am not able to fulfill these duties is you as well. Why am I not able to fulfill them? Because my affections are different from my duties, which is also you. Therefore, all problems are you problems alone. Arjuna recognized this problem in the battlefield when he saw all the implications of the impending war. He knew that no one really wins a war, that both sides are always losers. Even if you have a victory, the loss is very big. That Arjuna saw this very well was clearly demonstrated when he said in so many words, even though I may get back the kingdom and have all kinds of comforts and enjoyments at my command, they would all be stained with the blood of such great people as Bhishma and Drona. Rudhira pradigdha bhogas. If in order to buy this pleasure, I have to kill all these people, what a cost it is. There is a footnote. It is from chapter 2, shloka 5. This clearly shows that Arjuna thought that the battle was not a worthwhile activity on any grounds. Having concluded that the battle was not worthwhile, his next thought was, what then is worthwhile? If you cannot see anything worthwhile, you get frustrated and become a dropout. Dropping out itself is due to frustration. The frustration that comes from realizing that what is commonly pursued is not worthwhile. Nothing else being very clear, the person may just drop out of everything altogether and, taking a guitar in hand, lead the nomadic life of a wandering musician. A dropout can become a simple hobo also, all because of frustration. Here, Arjuna's frustration was not due to a psychological problem. The problem was much more than that. Arjuna was a man of valor, a man of courage, culture, and education, a man who was highly worshipped by everyone. Because he was already known as a great man, he no longer needed to prove himself on the battlefield or elsewhere. He did not come from a dysfunctional family to have psychological problems. He was a normal person whose life was functional all the way. In fact, since he was a prince and a worthy person as well, he had grown into much more than an average person. Even so, Arjuna was a person, which is what people tend to forget. Regaining the kingdom was no longer important. Arjuna was a human being with affections, and because of these affections, he could not see anything worthwhile about fighting. Therefore, he could not avoid the question, what is it that is worthwhile? Arjuna knew the answer to this question because he was born into a culture that had a value for self-knowledge. That was why his father had gone to the forest, in fact. Arjuna also had known other people who pursued this knowledge. But even though he knew such knowledge existed, he had not been drawn to it previously for the reasons we have already seen. Now, however, he found that he had no reason to fight, that regaining the kingdom and all that went with it would not solve the problem. If Arjuna had not known about the knowledge, he would have had no place to go and nothing worthwhile to pursue. But he did know there was a direction. He knew the problem could be solved by gaining Shreyas, Moksha, and there was no other way of solving it. He also knew that to gain the knowledge, he had to become a Shishya, a disciple, which meant he had to have a teacher. Knowing Krishna as he did, Arjuna knew that he would find no better teacher anywhere. Therefore, he said to Krishna straight away, I am your disciple. Please teach me all that is to be taught so that I may gain Shreyas. Shreyah syat nishitam buddhi tanme Shishyaha te aham sadhi mam tvam prapannam. It is from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, shloka 7. Kshamyatam, I'm reading very fast since we have already gone through this text once. So it is just browsing through the text quickly. If you wish, you want me to repeat due to my internet instability, kindly unmute in between and stop me, please. Arjuna's problem is to be understood within the meaning of the word you, Tvam Pada Artha, because the conflict belongs to you, Tvam alone. There is no problem whatsoever for Brahman, Ishvara, as we shall see in the second Shatka of the Gita, which talks of the Tat Pada Artha. Ishvara has no problem. The individual Jiva has the problem, and the individual has the Jignasha, the desire for knowledge. Until now, Arjuna's life had been worthwhile. Even though it required a battlefield, it had helped him. And here, on the battlefield, he had a desire for the knowledge. No one else on the battlefield had this desire, it seems. Least of all Duryodhana. Fortunately for Arjuna, Krishna was also on the battlefield. Arjuna could talk to Krishna, and because he was ready for this knowledge, Arjuna found a teacher in Krishna. How do I know Krishna was a teacher? Because he taught Arjuna, he did not say, shut up and fight and leave it at that. Although Krishna did say something similar to Arjuna in order to encourage him to do his duty, he taught him. If he had not, there would be no Gita. Instead, Krishna could have responded to Arjuna's request to teach him by giving Arjuna whatever psychological pep talk it would take to get him to fight. But Krishna did not do this. With utmost seriousness, he began teaching Arjuna. First, Krishna told Arjuna that there was no reason for sorrow. Ashocyan anvashochahatvam, and then proceeded to prove it in the remaining chapters of the Gita. He told Arjuna that the wise person do not subject themselves to sorrow, whereas he, Arjuna, is subject to sorrow in spite of talking words that smacked of wisdom. Krishna was as much telling Arjuna here that he was not as wise as his words would indicate. He did this so that Arjuna would listen to what he had to say. From the second chapter onwards, then Krishna taught Arjuna what the nature of Tvam and Tat is, and then talked about the connection between the two. Tat Tvam Asi is Vedanta. Tvam means you, which means I for each person. Therefore, the nature of I is the meaning of the word Tvam in Mahavakya, Tat Tvam Asi. Vedanta is nothing else but Tat Tvam Asi, the statement that reveals the identity between the Jiva and Brahman. In the first 6 chapters of the Gita, Krishna analyzed this Tvampada, the word you, meaning I, and all that is connected to it. And how did he begin? By saying that Atma is neither the subject, karta, nor an object, karma. To subject oneself to sorrow, one should be either a karta, the subject, or karma, an object. But Krishna said the Atma is not subject to objectification. Therefore, it can never be destroyed. Since Atma is not even available for anyone to look at, where is the question of doing something to it? Time, Kala itself cannot approach the Atma, and no other means of destruction can make Atma the subject of its destructive measures. Atma is therefore definitely not an object, karma. Here it might be said that Atma is not an object. Perhaps it is the subject, karta. No, Krishna said, it is neither a direct doer nor an indirect doer of any action. Therefore, it is free from kartritva, doership. It has neither doership nor enjoyership, nor does it have the status of being an object to anything else. All that is there is Atma, Krishna said. Atma that is free from everything and therefore free from sorrow. When Arjuna asked him to describe a wise person, Krishna told him that a person of wisdom is one who is happy without there being any reason. Knowing the nature of Atma, the Swarupa of Atma, such a person is free from any limitation, being identical with Brahman, Ishvara. Here, the topic being Tvampada Artha, Krishna mentioned the identity of Tvam with Brahman, the Tat of the Mahavakya, Tat Tvam Asi, but did not go into the meaning of Tat at length, as he did in the second group of 6 chapters dealing with Ishvara, because Tvampada Artha is equated to Tatpada. A proper analysis of the meaning of Tat is also necessary to complete the unfoldment of the equation Tat Tvam Asi. If the individual is indeed Brahman, this knowledge has to be gained. Therefore, Arjuna had a doubt about what he should do. Should he just go with karma or take to the life of sannyasa? Since knowledge would deliver the goods, he naturally thought he should go for the knowledge. But in the process of discussing this with Krishna, he was advised to do what was to be done. Krishna supported his advice with a number of arguments, saying that from any standpoint, from the power standpoint, the pain standpoint, or the duty standpoint, there was nothing that really bad Arjuna from doing what was to be done here and now. All this was discussed in the body of the second chapter. And because Arjuna had a natural doubt, there is a third chapter again covering Twampada alone. If knowledge liberates, why do karma at all? In the third chapter, Arjuna asked why he should not take to knowledge, which for him amounted to taking to the life of sannyasa, if knowledge is what it liberates. For him, sannyasa and knowledge were identical. He acknowledged that if he were interested in anything other than knowledge, then of course he should do karma. But he was not interested in anything else. Therefore, he thought that he should take sannyasa and pursue knowledge. Arjuna knew that taking sannyasa was the only way to be absolved from performing his various duties, that it was a ritual to release you from all rituals and all other duties as well. In other words, it's the final ritual. Once this ritual is over, there are no more roles to play, and you are free to pursue knowledge alone. To Arjuna, then, this seemed to be the most desirable thing to do because he was no longer interested in the kingdom. He was only interested in moksha. It seemed to be the only course open to him, and therefore he thought it correct. By telling Arjuna that he should do his duty, Krishna also made sure that Arjuna understood the knowledge alone liberates, that only the one who knows is free, and so on. Naturally, then, Arjuna wanted to know and to know thoroughly. From his question, however, it was very clear that he had some insight, but that his understanding of karma and sannyasa was not at all clear. This was why he kept asking Krishna to tell him which was better, karma or the pursuit of knowledge. It seemed to Arjuna that Krishna was contradicting himself, praising knowledge as the means for liberation and at the same time asking him to fight. Because Arjuna was confused, he asked Krishna to decide which would be better for him. Would karma give him moksha or jnana give him moksha? The twofold lifestyle. In order to clear up Arjuna's confusion, Krishna began again saying that he himself had introduced this twofold lifestyle in the beginning. Loke asmin dvividha nishtha pura prokta maya anga gnana yoge sankhyanam karma yogena yogina. Footnote from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, shloka 3rd. One is called Jnana Yoga or Nivritti Marga, and the other is called Karma Yoga or Pravritti Marga. In Jnana Yoga, one withdraws Nivritti from all activities to pursue knowledge, and in Karma Yoga, one performs activities, Pravritti, with the right attitude and pursue knowledge also. These same two lifestyles are also found in the first two verses of the Ishavasya Upanishad. Ishavasya Upanishad. Having told Arjuna all this, Krishna described Karma Yoga, repeating what he had already said in the second chapter. He told Arjuna that Karma Yoga is a means for moksha, that it is not something opposed to moksha, nor is it opposed to sannyasa. Rather, it is another way of gaining moksha, a way that is available for those who are not prepared to live the life of a sannyasi. The lifestyle known as sannyasa is not an easy one. Why? Because in sannyasa, you do not have a field wherein you can express yourself, and being able to express yourself is what helps you to mature. Therefore, it is preferable to be in the field, the world, and live a life of relationship within it. Relationship means playing various roles in the world, whereby you get rid of your ragas and dveshas. This is why Krishna talked about Karma Yoga predominantly in the third chapter. And who is this Karma Yoga for? Not for Ishvara. It is for the Jiva. Tvam Pada Artha. If anyone wants to share or simplify, kindly unmute and share. Just give me a 2 minute. Krishna as Ishvara. Then Krishna told Arjuna that what he had been telling him had been coming down throughout the ages. He had given this vision to humanity through the great sages, a few of whom Krishna named at the beginning of the fourth chapter. Many kings knew it and all the rishis knew it. Even so, it is not easily available, which is why Duryodhanas are so many. On hearing this, Arjuna had a problem. Krishna had said that he had taught those who had lived at the beginning of the creation, like Vivaswan, etc. How could this be? Krishna was his contemporary. What was he talking about? Therefore, he wanted to know who this Krishna really was. In reply, Krishna told him that they both had a number of births and that he, Krishna, knew all of his births, whereas Arjuna did not. Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tava cha Arjuna tani aham veda sarvani na tvam vedha parantapa. Footnote, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verse 5. In other words, if Arjuna knew himself, he would be as free as Krishna. Krishna then told Arjuna that he, Krishna, was not an ordinary jiva and that he was an incarnation of Ishvara. In other words, an avatara. Even though he was available empirically in human form, he did not subject himself to the empirical rules of reality, and therefore he was not born of karma. He was born because of the prayers of the people. In fact, he was not even born. Knowing he is never born, he simply assumed a body. Renouncing the doer. He also told Arjuna that this was not only true for Krishna, but that it was true for Arjuna as well. If Arjuna knew he was only assuming a body, that only a form is born, that he is never born, he would be the same as Krishna. One has to know that I, Atma, is never born. This is what is meant by Jnana Karma Sannyasa, the renunciation of karma through knowledge. Krishna then defined Jnana Karma Sannyasa as giving up kartritva, doership. And this giving up of kartritva is not an action. It is a fact that has to be understood. Atma is already given up. in the sense that Atma is already and always was free from doership. Knowing Atma as being free from doership is Jnana Karma Sannyasa. Whereas in Karma Sannyasa, karma is given up, but the doer is still there, giving up the karma. You may tell everyone that you have given up all your karmas, that you are a sannyasi, but it is the karta that says this, and this karta has to be dealt with, even if you take to a life of sannyasa. The person who says, I have done the last ritual, is the karta, and that karta is the one who has to be given up. Therefore, Krishna told Arjuna that doership is what has to be given up. Strictly speaking, only the person who is able to see actionlessness in the midst of all activities, karmani akarma yah pashyet, can be called a sannyasi. This person is a jnana karma sannyasi, one who gives up all action by knowledge, by knowing that Atma is not the doer. To make this even clearer, Krishna said that the fire of knowledge, Jnana Agni, destroys all karmas. Although Arjuna was getting the knowledge from Krishna, still Krishna told him as part of the teaching to gain the knowledge with the help of a teacher who knows. Approach such teachers, Krishna said, and they will teach you. Having said all of this, again he told Arjuna to get up and take to Karma Yoga. Yogam Atishta Uttishta. Footnote, Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, Shloka 1. Why? Because karma can only be given up in terms of knowledge, and Karma Yoga would prepare him for that knowledge. Therefore, it is not Karma Sannyasa that is important, but Jnana Karma Sannyasa. And the difference between the two is to be clearly understood here. Having again been told to take to yoga, Arjuna asked the same question using different words. You praise sannyasa and you also praise yoga, Krishna. Of the two, please tell me once and for all which one is better. Sannyasam karmanam Krishna punaryogam cha samshasi yat shreyah itiyoha ekam tat me bruhi Shunishitam. Shamyatam, that was from chapter 5, Shloka 1. Footnote. Here Arjuna was saying that how he did not think that Krishna was praising both sannyasa and karma, but that he still had a problem. He still wanted to know which one would give him Shreyas. From this, we see that Arjuna was still beating the same drum, still harping on the same string of doubt. Therefore, once again, Krishna told him that both lifestyles give moksha. But because sannyasa is not as simple as giving up all of one's activities, the life of sannyasa cannot be of any use to a person who is not prepared for it. Contemplativeness does not come by sheer will alone. In fact, the will does not come into it at all. Is there really a choice? Krishna was telling Arjuna here that he could take to sannyasa if he wanted to, that no one could stop him. But whether he would be a sannyasi in temperament, in disposition, was anyone's guess. Whereas Karma Yoga would in no way deny him the knowledge. In time, he would reach Brahman. Yoga Yukta Muni Brahma Na Chirena Adhigachati. That is also from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 5, verse 6. Krishna went on to say that the one who is endowed with yoga is one whose mind is purified and therefore there is mastery over the sense organs. This is the preparation needed for the knowledge to become very clear to the person. Then the person knows that the self is the self of all beings and all beings are in the self. Once a person recognizes this fact, then even though he or she performs action, the person is not affected by the action, which is renunciation of action by knowledge. I will read this one line because it is like a takeaway. The person who knows that the self is the self of all beings and all beings are in the self. Once a person recognizes this fact, then even though he or she performs action, the person is not affected by the action, which is renunciation of action by knowledge. Therefore, what one is aiming for is to become a knower of the truth, a tattvavita. And to become a tattvavit, there is a choice of lifestyle. But it is really not much of a choice. In other words, if you prefer to live a life of sannyasa, thinking it will be more convenient than a life of karma yoga, then you had better become a karma yogi, Krishna was saying. Whereas the moment you think you do not require sannyasa, then you can become a sannyasi. That is how it is. Sannyasa will stick with you if you are ready. But if you are not ready, taking to the lifestyle itself will not make you a jnana karma sannyasi. Because this point has to be understood. Krishna kept talking to Arjuna. Otherwise, he would simply have told him that he was unfit for sannyasa. Karma yoga and then sannyasa is the order. Krishna was not saying there is no sannyasa. He was saying there is sannyasa, which is what Arjuna found so confusing. But Krishna was not confusing Arjuna. He was educating him. He wanted Arjuna to see the difference between karma sannyasa and jnana karma sannyasa, because his question arose from confusion. He looked at yoga and sannyasa as black and white. In fact, there is no black and white here, nor is there any gray. Both karma yoga and sannyasa are equally efficacious. The only difference being that you have to be ready for life of sannyasa. This preparation is possible by living a life of karma yoga before becoming a sannyasi. If you take to sannyasa before you are ready, then as a sannyasi, you will still have to make yourself ready. This is a difficult thing to do. A little like becoming a professor and then becoming qualified in your subject matter. This is not an easy situation, especially for your students. Similarly, if you take to sannyasa before you are ready, you are a sannyasi in name only. To become a sannyasi in the true sense of the word in such a situation is not impossible, but it is certainly very difficult. Therefore, Krishna wanted Arjuna to understand that the real meaning of sannyasa is giving up action in terms of knowledge alone. There is no literal giving up here. By knowing you are not a doer, you give up doership, and then you are free. In the meantime, Krishna said, just do what is to be done without being excited or restless about what you are doing or not doing. And in time, this knowledge, this sannyasa will be gained. And whom is the sannyasa for? Is it for Ishvara or for the jiva? Again, it is for the jiva alone. Meditation. At the end of the 5th chapter, Krishna introduced the topic of meditation, the predominant subject matter of the 6th chapter. The meditation discussed here can be taken as that which invokes the grace of the Ishvara, Saguna Brahma, or contemplation on Atma, that is Brahman, Nirguna Brahma. Both interpretations are possible because both are meant for Jnana. Meditating on Ishvara is meant for grace, and that grace is also necessary for Jnana. With that grace, one gains a teacher, and thereby the knowledge that is moksha. And if you have already done that, if you have a teacher and have done Shravana and Manana, then you can live a life of contemplation, meditation, Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana. How one sits in meditation was also pointed out in this chapter. Again, we see that all this, the meditation and what precedes it is for the jiva alone. Thus, the first six chapters are about the jiva, the meaning of the word you, the tvam pada artha, and everything that concerns this you. What the individual has to do as a karma yoga, that karma yoga is a way for the person to prepare the mind for being the knowledge, that there is knowledge to be gained, that there is sannyasa also. All these are relevant to the Tvam-pada Artha alone. The nature of Tvam Atma was revealed as being free from being either a subject or an object, karma, and was equated to Ishvara, Tat-pada Artha. Because Tvam and Tat were equated in the analysis of the meaning of the word Tvam, Ishvara, Tat has to analyze. Who is Ishvara? How can I be Ishvara? Because there is this doubt about the validity of the equation, Ishvara is analyzed in the next six chapters. Even though every chapter talks about the equation, the predominant topic of these next six chapters is Ishvara, the Lord, the basis of Arjuna's fear. For example, in the 11th chapter, Arjuna gained a cosmic vision of the Lord with the grace of Krishna.
Jai Gurudev Bela, can you just read the previous para because there was a lot of disturbance?
Oh, is it? Okay. You mean this last paragraph, because Tvam, or I should read the whole?
Whole, where does it start from? Yeah, I think you can start from meditation.
Okay. There is a continuous notification. I don't know why the internet. Meditation. At the end of the fifth chapter, Krishna introduced the topic of meditation, the predominant subject matter of the sixth chapter. The meditation discussed here can be taken as that which invokes the grace of the Ishvara, Saguna Brahma, or contemplation on Atma, that is Brahman, Nirguna Brahma. Both interpretations are possible because both are meant for Jnana. Meditating on Ishvara is meant for grace, and that grace is also necessary for Jnana. With that grace, one gains a teacher, and thereby the knowledge that is moksha. And if you have already done that, if you have a teacher and have done Shravana and Manana, then you can live a life of contemplation, meditation, Nididhyasana. How one sits in meditation was also pointed out in this chapter. Again, we see that all this, the meditation and what precedes it, is for the jiva alone. Thus, the first six chapters are about the jiva, the meaning of the word you, the tvam pada artha, and everything that concerns this you. What the individual has to do as a karma yogi. That karma yoga is a way for this person to prepare the mind for gaining the knowledge. That there is knowledge to be gained. That there is sannyasa also. All these are relevant to the Tvam Pada Artha alone. The nature of this Tvam Atma was revealed as being free from being either a subject, karta, or an object, karma, and was equal to Ishvara, Padartha. Because Tvam and Tat were equated in the analysis of the meaning of the word Tvam, Ishvara, Tat has been also analyzed. Who is this Ishvara? How can I be Ishvara? Because there is this doubt about the validity of the equation, Ishvara is analyzed in the next 6 chapters. Even though every chapter talks about the equation, the predominant topic of these next 6 chapters is Ishvara, the Lord. The basis of Arjuna's fear. For example, in the 11th chapter, Arjuna gained a cosmic vision of the Lord with the grace of Krishna. But although Arjuna gained this vision, it was not total because he did not include himself in it. And because he makes this distinction between himself and the whole, there is fear. Arjuna's fear was so great when faced with the cosmic vision of Ishvara that he begged Krishna to revert to his human form. He found the old form, the one with the whip in hand, much easier and more pleasant to deal with, where, as in the cosmic form, the whole world was being devoured by Krishna. All the beings that one could possibly imagine were between the molars of this Ishvara, hanging there in the jaws of Ishvara, in the jaws of time. All the jivas were being ground to powder, as it were. Arjuna saw all of this. Naturally, then he was very frightened. Why? Because he excluded himself from the cosmic vision, meaning that he excluded himself from the whole. And because of that, he was overwhelmed by that whole. Yeah, please remember this line. Because he excluded himself from the cosmic vision, meaning that he excluded himself from the whole. Concluding the second Shatka called Ishvara Shatka, Krishna talked about devotion to Ishvara, Ishvara Bhakti, the topic of the 12th chapter. The third Shatka, the remaining 6 chapters of the Gita, begins with Krishna telling Arjuna that between him, Arjuna, and Ishvara, there is an identity. This identity is represented in the Mahavakya Tat Tvam Asi by the word Asi and is analyzed in the last 6 chapters. What is this identity? What brings it about, etc. are analyzed. Again, Krishna went into the means for this knowledge, the values, and a variety of other topics. This is because although the identity between the Jiva and Ishvara exists, it is not recognized. Therefore, the means that are to be used to bring this identity about in terms of knowledge is discussed from the 13th chapter onwards. In this way, then the 3 words Tat, Tvam, and Asi are each analyzed in the 3 Shatkas. We have already seen the first 6 chapters dealing with the Tvam Pada. Now, from the first verse of the second chapter onwards, we will see the second group of 6 chapters, the topic of which is Tat Ishvara. That's it. If anyone wants me to repeat any paragraph due to my internet problem, kindly let me know.
Just the last paragraph, Bella.
Ah,
Not the whole thing, just the last paragraph.
yeah. In this way, then the 3 words Tat, Tvam, and Asi are each analyzed in the 3 Shatkas. We have already seen the first 6 chapters dealing with the Tvam Pada. Now, from the first verse of the 7th chapter onwards, we will see the second group of 6 chapters, the topic of which is Tat Ishvara. Even while reading, there was this internet unstable. I'm really sorry, I am not. Still, my voice is breaking too much, right?
No, it is fine. It's fine
It
now,
is
Bella.
okay.
You can continue, yeah.
If anyone wants me to read or repeat before we stop for Manana. Brahmaraji, we can start the
I think
7th
we can
chapter
begin.
tomorrow,
Yeah,
right?
we can begin the 7th chapter. We still
We
have
can
some time.
begin.
Yeah, let's start the 7th chapter.
Okay. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Jnana and Vijnana. Introduction. The last verse of certain chapters of the Gita can seem out of context and therefore an interpolation. But if you look at the verse from the standpoint of what is going to come, it proves to be a building block, a connecting link. In the 5th chapter, for instance, we had a couple of verses introducing meditation, the topic of the next chapter. In the 6th chapter, Krishna says in the second verse, in the second last verse, Tasmat yogi bhava. Therefore, be a yogi. That statement sums up the yoga of meditation. But another verse follows, and in this last verse, there is a building block. It contains a prashna bija, a seed of a question, but not an explicit question. Let us look into the verse. योगीनामपि सर्वेषां मद्गतेनान्तरात्मना श्रद्धावान् भजते यो मां समे युक्ततमो मतः. Here Krishna says, by the one whose mind is absorbed in me, the Lord, Madgatena Antaratmana, the one who worships me, he is the most exalted among the yogis. This is the seed for two obvious questions. One, how does the yogi become the one whose mind is absorbed in Ishvara? Second, what is the nature of Krishna, the Lord? Such a doubt is possible because this has not been explained in detail so far. The questions are detected by Bhagavan and he answers them in the chapters that follow. Idrasham Madhyam Tattvam. This is the nature of myself. This is how one is absorbed in me. Unfoldment to Tat Pada begins. In the first 6 chapters of the Gita, the meaning of the word Tvam, you, the Jiva, in the Mahavakya, Tattvam Asi was unfolded in detail. Now, in the following 6 chapters, the word Tat, the cause of everything, the Lord, is the predominant topic. With a desire to unfold this, Shri Bhagavan says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Saktamana Partha Yogam Yunjan Madashrayah Maya Saktamana Partha Yogam yunjan madashrayah asmshayam samakram mam yatha jnasya tachrunu. Shri Bhagavan, Lord Krishna, Uvacha said, Partha, O Partha, Mayi, in me, Asakta Manaha, the one whose mind, Manaha, is Asakta. Madashraya, Madashraya, having surrendered to Yogam Yunjan, uniting oneself to yoga, Karma Yoga. Yatha, in which way? Asamshayam, without any doubt. Samagram, in totality. Mam, me. Ishvara, gnasyasi, gyasyasi. You will know. Tat, that way. Shrunu, please listen. Shri Bhagwan Vacha, Partha, Mai Asakta Manaha, whose madashrayah, Yogam Yunjana, Yatha, Asamshayam, Samagram, Mam, Ishvarah, Shamyatam, Mam, Gnasyasi, Tat, Shrunu. Shri Bhagwan said, O Partha, please listen to the way in which you will know me totally, without any doubt, by taking to yoga with a mind committed to me and having surrendered to me. I repeat, Shri Bhagavan said, O Partha, please listen to the way in which you will know me totally, without any doubt, by taking to yoga with a mind committed to me and having surrendered to me. With the word Mai in the words, Bhagwan introduces himself as the topic of this and the subsequent chapters. Maya Saktamanah, Mai in me. Asakta Manah, a person whose mind is committed. The one who has such a commitment is called Maya Saktamanas. Madarsh, Shamyatam, Madarshrayah, Madashrayah, Madashrayah, having surrendered to me. I will read once again, I'm sorry. With the word Mai in the verse, Bhagwan introduces himself as the topic of this and the subsequent chapters. Maya Sakta Manah, Mai in me, Asakta Manah, a person whose mind is committed. The one who has such a commitment is called Maya Sakta Manas. Madashrayah, the one whose ashraya, basis is me, Parameshwara. He is the one for whom Parameshwara is the only ashraya. In his commentary, Shankara explains the meaning of Madashraya as follows. A person becomes a desirer with reference to a desired end. To accomplish it, he adopts a means appropriate to that end, and that means is called ashraya. A ritual like daily Agnihotra is an ashraya for gaining the punya to go to heaven. So the person is called Agnihotra Shraya. Now, to accomplish moksha, which ashraya should you have? The Lord says you should be Madashraya, Ishwarashraya, the one whose ashraya is Ishwara. Generally, one resorts to Ishwara for some other end. But here, the end he is committed to is Ishwara himself, which is expressed in the word Maya Saktamanas. The Ishwarashraya wants Ishwara. In other words, he wants to be free from being a jiva. That is called moksha. Parmeshwara becomes the very end and also the means. Giving up all other means, Shankara continues, the one who seeks only Parmeshwara as the Ashraya in order to gain Parmeshwara becomes a Maya Saktamanas. He is the one whose mind is committed only to me because for him the means is myself. I am the means, I am the end. These words are all to be explained in the chapter. In seeking, anyone wants to say, anyone wants me to read once again because there is a constant message, internet instability. Just let me know. I think it is Mata Chitta Mata Para, right, Brahmaraj?
Yes. I think we can stop here for Manana Bela.
Okay. If anyone wants me to repeat anything once again, I can read and then we can close. I'll
If you
just
can
read
just
the
read the
Prati.
last, just read the Pratipadartha and the meaning.
Yeah, okay. Shri Bhagavanuvach Maya Saktamana Partha Yogam Yunjanmayashrayah Asamshayam Samagmam Yatha Gyasasi Tachunu. Shri Bhagavan, Lord Krishna, Uvacha said, Partha, O Partha, Mayi, in me, Asakta Manaha, the one whose mind, Manaha, is Asakta, committed, Madashrayah, having surrendered to me, Yogam Yunjan, uniting oneself to yoga, Karma Yoga, Yatha, in which way, Asamshayam, without any doubt, Samagram, in totality, Mam, me, Ishvara, Gyasyasi, you will know, Tat, that way, Shrunu, please listen. Shri Bhagwan said, O Partha, please listen to the way in which you will know me totally, without any doubt, by taking to yoga, with a mind committed to me and having surrendered to me alone. So beautiful. We will just close our eyes for a few minutes and then we can share our takeaways. Hari Om, kindly unmute and share whatever takeaways you have learned so far from the first six chapters summary and from the beginning of the first verse of 7th chapter also. There is so much of uh, support, reference for our Atma Bodh and 6th chapter. So kindly unmute and share your takeaways.
So the whole Gita is about the Tattvamasi, and the first 6 chapters refer to the Tvam Pada Lakshartha, and then the second 6 chapters, that is the 7th until the 12th, take care of the Tvam of the Tat Pada Lakshartha. And that is what is so beautifully connected between chapter 6 and now chapter 7, where Krishna talks of Mai. He talks of Mai when you he has introduced the concept of Mat Chitta, Mat Para in chapter 6, but here he's going to expound that completely. The Tvam Pada, the Tat Pada Lakshartha. It's all about Ishvara. And he talks of Madhashraya. If you when you surrender to him and keep him as uppermost in your mind, just like that tanbura, where constantly goes on saying, so whatever we do as karma yogis, if we have the attitude of offering it to the divine, that that will fulfill this madashraya machitta. And it was a very beautiful summary of reliving all that from chapter 1 to chapter 6 that we've seen. Yeah, anyone else can also share. We have a few minutes. So in chapter 6 summary, um, Bhagwan says, in order to get the grace of the Lord, Saguna Brahma Upasana is important, and that contemplation comes in afterwards, the Nididhyasana. When you have the grace of the Master, grace of the Lord, then you will find, or you will have um, the means to access this knowledge through a teacher. And then, having done enough manana, shravana, manana, then that nididhyasana happens, the nirguna brahma upasana. So it beautifully connects karma yoga, dhyana yoga, and now to explaining what the tat is. Hmm? So anyone is ready for the shloka number 16? 16 was it, or 17? Chapter 6? Bela, are you able to share screen for chapter 6?
Shloka.
I'm sharing, Bella. It is, we finished Shloka 16 yesterday. Is anyone ready for sharing the summary of Shloka 17? Is anyone prepared for that? The Shloka 16 says, Natyashnatastu yogosti na chaikantamanashnataha na chati swapnashilasya jagrato chaiva naiva charjuna.
I read a little bit, Dr. Brahmara, that 17, but I don't know how much I can say, but
Yeah,
I'll
go
try.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So the verse 16, you talked about how when to meditate um, and the food and all that, right? We read
16,
that.
yeah,
And then
16 was just
in the
giving the
16,
criteria, saying a person
right,
who either eats too much or does not eat at all, one who sleeps too much or does not
right,
just keeps awake, either of them, meditation does not happen.
right.
And
So
then
this following verse, the verse 17, basically, he says, I will read the last paragraph from the last one. The unfortunate thing here is the both types of people, those who sleep too much and those who sleep too little end up sleeping. Thus, Krishna says here there is no yoga, no contemplative life for either of them. How then is this yoga to take place and for whom? The answer is given in the next verse. Yuktahara Yuktaraha Vigarasya Yuktasestasya Karmashu Yuktaswapnava Bodhasya Yoga Bhavati Dukkaha. I do like to read this padartha. It's Yukta Ahara Viharsaya. For one who is moderate in eating and other activities. Karmashu with reference to one's duties. Yukta Setasya for one who is moderate in effort. Yukta Swapna Avabodhasya, for one who is moderate in terms of sleeping and waking hours. Dukkha, the destroyer of sorrow. Yoga, the meditation. Bhavati becomes. So here, in this verse, the previous verse said the person who's eat too much, sleep too much, and who's do little, what happens to them. But here, specifically what they say about it is, for one who is moderate in eating and moderate in doing the activities, and in reference to all the duties, like one sleeps moderately and waking up and in a right time. So the meditation becomes the destroyer of the sorrow, that the dukkha is removed by this meditation. So that's what is explained here. So everything is in moderate. So if person has the discipline of doing things like waking up at a certain time and sleeping at certain time and eating right kind of diet, but not only obsessed in diet, or not only doing exercise, not only doing certain activities, or doing multiple activities at the same time, also is not good. They're not able to do this yoga. So that's what kind of explained in this gist, basically about the spiritual obsessions in terms of the diet, or you eat junk food and you do a lot of aerobics and spend hours of doing exercise. None of that would going to help with this meditation. So there is this yukta is a word to be remembered. It is a sense of proportion. So the proportion is needed to your body, individual body. It's not like uh, everybody is, they exercise. I need to only sleep 5 hours. Sleep is enough for me. My body is able to deal with it. But some people need to have 78 hours of sleep. In general, we say 78 hours of sleep needed. But again, here, that is the proportion is talking about. Um, and one needs sense of proportion in one's activities. That's the one I mentioned about multitasking. It's not also good, like you are doing something in the middle, something else need attention, then you leave that and go to the other one, so you're not able to finish that one or the other task either. So if you do things in proportion, you're able to finish one, the task that is that what is need to be done is done. So I didn't get to the point where you must decide for yourself what is proper, but I think I didn't read all of this part, but I thought everything in moderation. Um, if somebody else read this page, I couldn't read the last page. That's how much I got to
No,
read.
thank you so much for for sharing that, Dr. Mara.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The important thing is, again, this is the continuation from what local number 10 or 11 12, from there, it's like a really in context to remember. The last one we said the Shanti is the end with uh, the meditation. Here they mentioned about dukkha is removed by the meditation. So there's so many effects on by doing meditation.
Yeah. Thank you. I would like to just read this last paragraph here before the next section. What is meant by the Yukta Cheshta? Because here Swamiji says a person just eating in moderation is not the focus here. It is Yukta, that is the proportion, which is very important. Proportion in all aspects of living. It's not just about eating, it's not just about vihara, It is not just about even your spiritual practices. It's a proportion. It's an overall universal proportion, 360-degree proportion he's talking about. So that is what he mentions here when he says, what you eat and how much you eat can become an obsession. Basically, this yukta is freeing ourselves from this obsession. And for a spiritual seeker, seeking can become a spiritual obsession. Such a person thinks that eating properly is being spiritual, whereas, in fact, eating properly is a matter of health, nothing else. So giving whatever, putting everything in perspective, giving each its significance. Because I've seen so many people who get so stuck up with food. Oh, I should not eat onion, I should not eat garlic. And then if at all someone serves them something that has either of them, it just puts them off balance. So that is not what is meant here. That is being spiritually obsessed. So doing what is to be done without putting too much attention on the, without being totally obsessed with it. He says a demon can eat properly and still accomplish all his demonic activities in a disciplined way. A thief may follow a proper diet and exercise daily, but still he continues to commit crimes. Therefore, yukta is a very important word here, meaning the one who has a sense of proportion in all things. And then one who is a yukta cheshta with reference to all activities is one who does
Yeah,
not
that
waste.
paragraph also is good. The last paragraph.
Yeah, who does not waste his or her time fretting and fuming because there is a lot to be done. This person performs each activity deliberately, consciously, one by one. In this way, everything gets done efficiently and in the proper order. Cheshta refers to any movement, including those of the hands and legs. The Yukta Cheshta, therefore, is also a person who does not waste the movements of his or her limbs while performing various activities. We can all relate to this so much, no? So often we are in this state of fretting and fuming. Oh, we have so many things to do. To-do list goes on. And then we get so caught up in that act of being emotionally stressed because there's so much to be done. Rather, what Swamiji and what Bhagwan is talking here is that you perform every activity deliberately. Put your 100% in whatever you're doing and do it consciously with awareness. And one by one. Most often we want to multitask, and most often when you're doing one thing, your mind goes to another thing. It's like the monkey mind. This is not what is meant here. Just one by one. In this way, this reminds me of when Gurudev says slow down and cool down. The slowing down is so important even for a spiritual seeker, because there is so much kind of sense of urgency that might spill on into becoming an obsession. So in this way, everything gets done efficiently and in proper order. There was one, even I read this whole thing yesterday, but there was one thing that I wanted to, which really struck me, was something that Swamiji talks of inner leisure. Let me just read this, the next two paragraphs. Why one needs a sense of proportion in one's activities. Why is this required yukta? We all know what happens if we do too many things at the same time. The end result is that nothing gets done. If you want to do a certain thing and suddenly you remember something else, so you leave what you're doing and go to the other activity. Then you remember something else and off you go again. Some people cannot even take a bath without becoming distracted by other things they want to do at the same time. These people are ayukta cheshtas, whereas a yukta cheshta does each thing that is to be done deliberately and consciously. Even the hand movements of the person are done consciously. In fact, this is what the life of a Zen master is all about. Watching his or her every movement, watching what the hands are doing and where they go becomes a form of meditation for the person. However, one need not go that far. The point being that a sense of proportion in all activities is necessary so that nothing becomes an obsession. There is nothing to be gained from an obsession, but there is something to be gained from being conscious about what you do. What is gained is a sense of alertness. Thus, the word yukta means that you are conscious about what you do and you do what is to be done. In this way, there is an inner leisure that enables you to gain knowledge. We'll stop here. But this inner leisure is something that really struck me. In that, when you're doing things consciously, deliberately, with awareness, then your mind inside is decluttered. It is not, there are no zigzag thoughts coming in and going out and impulsive thoughts coming up. You're just doing one thing at a time. It is like the flow of the stream or the flow of the oil. It just goes on uninterrupted. Rather than get a lot of thoughts coming in and out, just like how we have hyperactive children, we call them ADHD, but that is physically what we see. Mentally, all of us actually are having ADHD because when you're doing something, there is another thought that comes about some other activity. I don't know about the others, but I go through this quite a lot. So even when you're doing japa, for instance, you're doing japa, but is your mind on just the japa or does the mind go all over the place? Then there is no yukta cheshta there. So this is a beautiful aspect to ponder over. Let's ponder over this for the rest of today. And it will be good for all of us to read these, the meaning of the PDF, and one of us can continue sharing the rest of the summary. I think we'll stop here today. Anyone wants to share anything before we close? We'll just open for a minute and then we'll close. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev.
Thank you.
We'll continue tomorrow. Jai Gurudev.